I was lucky enough to be invited out to cook in Mexico a couple of years ago, and what struck me immediately was just how great the food was and how friendly everyone I met and worked with was. The experience had a big influence on how I cook in a number of ways, but it's the aroma and flavour of fresh masa corn tortillas that instantly transports me back to being in Mexico. It's hard to get fresh masa in the UK, there's not that many people making it, and although you can buy pre-packaged corn tortillas, these are really a pale imitation of tortillas made with fresh masa. It's a bit like comparing supermarket sliced white bread to freshly baked sourdough. I was shown how to make masa by some of the chefs that I worked with in Mexico, and when I came back I really wanted to practice this, so I put a taco on my menu and I made myself the rule that I was only going to make this with my own homemade masa. So today I'm going to show you how I do that and how you can too. Masa is a staple out in Mexico, not unlike bread has been in Europe. But while bread transforms wheat through fermentation and the actions of yeast, in masa corn is transformed through nixtamalization, an ancient and ingenious process that makes corn more nutritious and delicious. Nixtamalization is the process of cooking and steeping dried corn in an alkaline solution, made with quicklime or calcium hydroxide, which I'll refer to as Cal for the rest of the video. There's evidence of nixtamalization going back as far as 1000 BC, and it makes the corn more nutritious and healthy, and it also helps the ground corn to bind together without the presence of gluten. Most importantly to me, it unlocks incredible, beautiful, complex flavors and aromas in the corn. And it's the flavor and texture that you can only get from nixtamalization that makes fresh masa tortillas so unique, delicious, and beautiful. So I'm going to take you through how I make fresh masa, how you can make this at home, grind the dough without any specialist equipment, and then press and cook incredible corn tortillas. So let's get into the process. The three things that really determine whether you've got good masa and corn tortillas are the quality of the corn, the process of the nixtamalization and the freshness of the dough, and that then once you press and cook the corn tortillas, that they stay hot right until you serve them. They're never as good again once they've cooled down, and that's one of the reasons why pre-packaged corn tortillas are always so disappointing compared to beautiful fresh ones. It is hard to get good corn for making tortillas here in the UK, so I have to import mine, which is quite expensive. The corn that we want is dried field corn, not the sort of sweet corn that we're used to eating. I'll leave a link to where I get my corn in the video description, and I've worked with a variety of different Mexican heirloom corns, and they all have different flavors and characteristics. In fact, I've filmed this process over a couple of different batches using different types of corn, but the principle is the same for all of them. We start off the process by cooking our corn in the water with the cal. I'm using 1% of the corn's weight of cal. So for 500 grams of corn, I'll use 5 grams of cal. Now I make a slurry with the cal and a little water so that it'll disperse well. I didn't used to do this, but I read this tip from Hacienda, who I buy my corn from, and it just makes things a little bit easier. Then I add 4 times the weight of the corn in water. So here I'm using 500 grams of corn and I'll use 2 kilograms of water. I heat the water to a simmer and then reduce it down to low and let it cook for about 25 minutes. You need to keep testing the corn during this process. For some varieties it could take longer, up to 45 minutes. You want the kernels to be not fully cooked but just al dente. The cooking softens the corn and helps the alkaline solution to be absorbed, and this starts off that process of nixtamalization. The smell of corn cooking to make masa is as compelling as the smell of fresh baked bread. It really is quite magical. So once our corn is cooked al dente, we'll remove the pan from the heat, cover it and let it sit at room temperature for 12 hours. Normally I would do this in the evening so that the next day my corn's ready to make my fresh masa. Next we're going to drain our nixtamalized corn and rinse it gently with cold water. Not too much, but just enough to start to get rid of some of the skins. Then we're ready to grind our corn into a dough which can be used for tortillas or for other preparations. So a perfect way to do this is with a hand crank mill, but I'm going to show you how to do it with a blender because I think more people will have access to one. So to grind the corn fine enough in a blender, we're going to have to add a little more water than we would use if we were stone grinding the masa. Then at the end we'll add a little bit of dried masa into this mix to get it back to the right texture. You could buy masa harina for that, or you can dry any leftover dough that you have and then blitz that down to a powder and use it to add into your next batch. So we take our nixtamalized corn and add it to the blender along with 400 grams of water. Then we're going to blend this on high for 10 minutes. You should end up with a smooth, damp dough. Then to this we're going to add 200 grams of dried masa or masa harina, 30 grams of oil and 15 grams of salt. We'll mix these together well and then give the mix a knead either on the worktop or in a stand mixer. Then if we're going to make tortillas, we divide the dough into 40 gram balls, and then you'll need a tortilla press to press these. I use these little wax paper squares when I'm pressing my tortillas. Personally, I prefer that to the plastic wrap. Then we're ready to cook them. So a cast iron pan or a comel like the carbon steel one I'm using would be perfect for cooking these, but you can just use a dry frying pan as well. You want to cook the tortillas on each side until they're just cooked and toasted and then flip them over. We'll flip them 2 or 3 times until they're nicely cooked through. If you cook a test tortilla first, then you can use that as a guide to your timings for the rest. You want them nicely cooked through, but not drying out. Then we need to keep our tortillas hot until we're ready to serve them. The starch in tortillas isn't as forgiving as in bread, so once they've cooled down, you never get the flexibility or the flavour back again, even if you warm them back up. Because I'm only cooking for 8 guests a night, I can cook my tortillas during service just before I'm actually going to serve them. But I still use a little tortilla warmer just to keep them warm until the last moment. Even a cheap tortilla warmer or just folded clean tea towels to keep them warm will do. The stack of tortillas will help to keep each other warm, and they'll actually soften a little bit during this process too. And so that's the process start to finish of making fresh masa and then using that to make beautiful fresh corn tortillas. Fresh masa tortillas were a revelation to me the first time that I had them, and I hope that you get an equal amount of joy from them. I think this process is so worth it for the flavour, but I will do a shorter video soon on how to make tortillas using masa harina, because whilst they don't have quite the same level of flavour, they're still pretty good, and I think for some people that'll be an easier option. So hit subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any videos. And if you've enjoyed this, then maybe you'd be interested in my videos on the process of how I distill my own gin or make fresh koji and my own misos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.